the world. And I accepted that. Then I start looking into the subject and I realize, although I'm a physician, but I didn't know what contribution Muslim made. And so I started searching. I took help of Google, I took help of various articles, and finally I prepared the paper. And I have presented three great scholars and their contribution. Uh, First one is Al-Zahrawi, who was a great surgeon. And just to give you a glimpse of that, he was during the period like year 1000, and he served as a surgeon for about 60 years. And during that period, he invented so many surgical instruments and he developed techniques of operating very complicated things like removing cataracts from eyes. Remember, 1,000 years ago. Even if there is a fetus is dead in the womb, he developed a technique to remove that without hurting mother. And that was a great, great achievement 1,000 years ago. And if I can say one word about him, the instruments and the techniques he develops in surgery in 60-year span have not done by the Muslims in last 800 years. A single person. And that's where I will tell you. Then I talk about Ibn Rushd, Ibn Khaldun, Ibn Hazm. Ibn Battar was a botanist. Ibn Rushd was a philosopher as well as the physician. So I was amazed. So after I present that paper, I said, my knowledge is very limited, so I think I should do something. And then I realized many Muslims do not know, and still I can say a lot of Muslims did not know about the great contribution the Muslim scholars made between 7th century and 15th century. And that's the thing I will take you. They made vital contribution in many fields of science, astronomy, mathematics, physics. You name any subject and they have written something about it. One historian, British, said, if there would have been a Nobel Prize between 7th and 15th century, every Nobel Prize in every field of science and sociology and geology, everything would have gone to Muslims. That's what their contribution was. The physicians have written the books, describe every possible disease during that period and the cure. And the Muslim astronomers look at the stars. And one thing, if anybody interested in astronomy, you will still find 2/3 of the stars were named Arabic because they are the one who discovered that. But what happened, Westerners suppressed that. They did not publicize. And Muslims somehow stopped doing scientific research, which given details. But Westerners learned from Muslims all the knowledge in the field of science and technology from Spain and later on from Baghdad. And they translated everything that became the foundation for Renaissance. But Westerners did not mention that. And although in 17th century, the entire Muslim world was colonized, entire Muslim world. And Muslims become very demoralized. And when they are reintroduced to the subject of science, they thought that the science was developed by Greek and Romans and then there was a Dark Ages, and then from Renaissance, again the Westerners developed that. So there was no mention about the Muslims at all. So our students in 20th century thought that the science developed by the Westerners, not by Muslims. Actually, science developed by the Muslims, but they thought it's for the Westerners. So they have the concept that there was Roman and Greek contribution, then there was nothing in the Dark Ages, then suddenly Renaissance, the new development come. So I spent almost 30 years in looking into that, and that's what I want to share you with that introduction. Let me. It's not. This is. Can I go?
Yeah, you can present for me.
It's coming up.
Okay. Okay. So we'll. Can you go the full screen?
Next slide.
Full screen.
That is okay.
Yeah,
you can just
full screen. Yeah, and to go up and down.
Maybe on the new share.
Yeah, Dr. Sab, go from here.
Oh, okay. Which one I should use?
You should go.
Can you the full screen? And then see how you should go up and down.
Yeah, this one.
Full screen, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me just. Oh.
Somebody can open.
First slide. Go down. Yeah.
Oh. This is fantastic.
Okay. Now you're all ready. You are aware that before Islam, the Arabs were in the period of Jahiliyyah. They have only expertise in poetry. They were very good in writing poetry, but no worldly knowledge, maybe some mathematics. Otherwise, because they were businessmen. And if I can tell you one hadith, which I remember, after the Jang-e-Badr, there were a lot of prisoners, Quraysh. And Prophet said, peace be upon him, we can release some of the prisoners if they promise to teach people in Medina. And of course, what they were teaching, not Islam, they were teaching the worldly knowledge, how to write, read, and become knowledgeable. The first verse in the Quran, the first verse ever revealed what Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi. And what this verse means, that read in the name of your Lord, who has created from a clot. Read, your Lord is the most generous, who has taught the writing by the pen, and he taught that which you don't know. Now, there was no religious book in the world which start with the knowledge. Quran was the first revealed book. First verse is talked about. Now, look at the word pen. It means God is saying, whatever knowledge you gather, you use pen to preserve it, to write it, so that the next generation will benefit from your knowledge. Now, if you understand that there's a lot of things to learn, God is saying that the purpose of your creation is learn, become comfortable, explore the creation. And that is a very thus the prophet started getting that the knowledge is very important and one should be knowledgeable. Quran has a dua, Rabbi zidni ilmi, is continuously taking that, oh God, give me the knowledge, increase my knowledge. There is one more verse I need to mention here, which fascinated me, and the translation is, it is 16 verse 8. And it is he who creates horses, mules, and asses for it to ride, as well as for their beauty, and he will create things of which today you have no knowledge. Now just think about it. In year 700, 650, this revealed, and it's talking about the transportation. Today you have horses, mules. Tomorrow something more is coming. What's that? Bicycles, cars, planes. Quran is giving you the hints. So in the book, I have given you 19 verses. 19 verses which I quoted from the Quran, which talks about importance of the knowledge and how God is giving you the brain, the aql, it use the intelligence, aql, to use that knowledge to explore the God's creation and utilize that for serving humanity. That was the message, and I have given you. Because of the short time, I couldn't present all those, but thus is the importance of that. Now, what happened when Muslims did go out of Arabia and start conquering Byzantine Empire? They were very fascinated. They come across some knowledge about philosophy, physics, and some mathematics. They didn't know about that. So they become very fascinated. And even during the days of Umayyad Khalifa, which expanded quite a bit, they learned about it. And it was Abbasi Khalifa who became more interested than any Khalifa in the earlier part of our history. And they started a very huge institution called Baitul Hikmah in Baghdad. And what they did, they spent a lot of money to send people all over the world, not only just the Byzantine, where they captured the area, but even China and India, to bring the books from there, and they established a translation bureau. So literally, what my understanding is, thousands of books were brought to Baghdad, and they have Christians, Hindus, Jews, all of them hired to translate them from European languages, Indian, Chinese languages to Arabic. So and when people learn that, they become so much fascinated that they started doing their own original research work. That's what happened during the Abbasi Khalifa. And as a result of that, they produced hundreds, maybe thousands of scholars. And these are the scholars not expert in one subject, but every subject. Ibn Haytham was a physicist. And Ibn Haytham was the first physicist or the first scientist who said, you cannot just theorize like Greek used to do that. You have to do the experiment, result, and then you share. This is the base thought. That's become, he was regarded as the first scientist. The scientist definition is you think about it, you have hypothesis, the experiment, you prove it, and then you present. And he did that. And one simple presentation I will make it, he was the first one who said the rays did not go from eyes to the object to perceive, it comes from object to the eyes. It looks very simple, but he was the first one who described that. And that's the basic principles of vision. And then he perceived in the brain. And then he experimented and he became founder of the what we call camera, which we are using today. Unfortunately, developed a knowledge of algorithm, algebra algorithm, which became the basis of the computer today. Al-Tusi was a great astronomer. Ibn Sina was a physician, and I will just tell you one word about him. That was in year 1000. He wrote 200 books. One book is called Al-Khanunul Tib, the Canon of Medicine. That one book has 30 volumes. And he wrote every possible knowledge about the disease at the time, with the cause, with the treatment, because he gathered that information from all resources, from Latin, Greek, Chinese, and Indian. 30 volumes writing in year 1000 is not an easy job. Writing one article, you all know how much it takes time with your autocorrection and computer. Writing with handwriting, with the scribes, 30 volumes is beyond imagination, but he did. So those are the people who work so hard. Al-Masudi was a geographer. Ibn Battuta traveled 75,000 miles without air and without ships. So these people have done extremely hard work. Jabir bin Hayyan was a chemist. So there was not a single field of knowledge where it did not work. I just want to mention that I have collected about 25 posters of these great scholars, and with each poster, I have put about 2 paragraphs of their work, what they did. And I was using this for last 10 years. I collected from India, many parts of the India, from Hyderabad mostly, some from Pakistan, but I have used that during the presentation. But this year, from December to January 15, we have an exhibit of these scholars in University of Texas Dallas, UTD. And UTD has 30,000 students. Most of the students visit library, and they were amazed. And I think Basheer was there, look at the exhibit himself. So that exhibit ran for about 6 weeks. And it was a tremendous success because the students were amazed. They didn't know about it. So one thing I think you already mentioned, since year 2001, we are constantly facing Islamophobia, and our media and news only report about the terrorists, and they all think Muslims are terrorists. But that is what we did to dispel that misunderstanding. So coming back to this, after my brief description about how much we achieved, what happened? Why you were wondering, and I was wondering, why people lost that achievement. From 12th century on, there was a decline. The decline was not in 1 year, 100 years, but by year 1500, remember this, and I'm going to challenge you, if you ever find anything contradictory to what I'm saying, please contact me. From 15th century onwards, no Muslim university in the entire Muslim world, no university in the Islamic world was teaching science in class. Our grandfather was in India. They don't know what physics is. They never even heard of it. They only knew Persian, Arabic, Islam, fiqh, Islamiyat, extensive knowledge, great scholarship, but not a single scientist. From when? From 15th century until 19th century, 20th century. 500 years. Just seriously think about it. 500 years, the entire Muslim world did not teach any subject related to science. And it took me a long time to understand. I read a lot of books, lot of articles. And if you search Google, you'll find decline in the knowledge. Most of the books will tell you because of Mongolian attack. Most of them. Colonialism. Yeah, they're correct. Mongolians destroyed Baghdad. But that was only one city they started. These scholars from Egypt, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Iran, Cordoba, they didn't describe that. So what happened? So I found that the decline started in 11th century, about 100 years before the 100 year before Mongolian attack. Why? What happened? Some religious scholars felt that if people read philosophy and science, they will deviate from religion. That was a wrong assumption, partly correct, because when you read philosophy, obviously your mind start thinking about it. Is that God exist? True, there is no question about that. This can happen, but it doesn't mean that people will deviate from the religion. But somehow they were concerned about it. I understand that. But the second big problem was that Abbasi Khalifa was losing power, and Sulh Khilafat was coming to power. And they have a very distinguished wazir, prime minister. His name was Nizamul Mulk. He convinced the Khalifa, if you support the education in university, teaching science and philosophy, they will question your Khilafat because they want democracy, because people will be more enlightened and you will lose the power. So Sultan Khalifa stopped funding the university because university are primarily funded with the government money in a sense. And Nizamul Mulk then devised, with the help of a lot of scholars, Islamic syllabus. And they said all the universities must stop teaching science and philosophy and only teach Islamiyat. And it is called Dars-e-Nizamiya. Now, if you remember, back home in India, we still have Dars-e-Nizamiya. We still have a lot of Islamic madrasas use the same Dars-e-Nizamiya with Nizamul Mulk devised in year 11th, 12th century. So that was the biggest damage occurred to them. Now, why people were not concerned? Because during 11th, 12th century, still the scientific development was not thought about as necessary. They thought the physical is still necessary. So even though they stopped teaching science, but they were physically very strong. We have, in 15th century, I told you, we stopped teaching science, but we had great empires. Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire was such a great empire that Europe was frightened with the Ottoman Empire because they have physical strength. So they were very proud of their strength. They thought we don't need science. And that was a wrong thinking. And by 1670, no university in the Muslim world was teaching science, but Europeans did something different. Europeans were in dark ages, and they first time were introduced to science after most probably 400-500 years when they conquered Cordoba. They said, my goodness, what these Muslims are doing. They had all this research work done in medicine, in physics, in chemistry, in biology, in every field. So they translated everything from Arabic to Latin. And there was a great philosopher, Ibn Rushd. He continuously wrote. He born about 100 years after Nizam al-Mulk, and he said Nizam al-Mulk was not right. I think people should reach science. There is no conflict between science and religion. People can be a good Muslim, he can be a good scientist. You are all the good evidence now in front of my eyes. You can see that. He tried to shout that, but nobody listened to him. But that message was picked up by Westerners. They said, I think he's making sense. The Christians made a wrong decision. In year 300, the Christians made a decision. If something is not in the Bible, it cannot be correct. So they stopped teaching science, year 300. So in 1600, they put back the science into the curriculum. So the Europe was progressing with leaps and bounds, but Muslims were going back. Ottoman Empire, two examples I will give you to prove my point. In 1475 or something, the printing press was found in Germany. When Ottoman Empire, people say, buy this, ulama said, no, it's haram. For 300 years, they did not have printing press. So people were still writing with the hand. Can you imagine how much we lost? So 1777, the first printing press was introduced to the Muslim world. Because some ulama say, if you write Arabic, it will be behurmati. So they start. So second thing is, because they did not have the scientific, they become more fanatics. They started saying, this is Muslim, that's not Muslim, Shia is not Muslim. So they Sharia become very complicated. And as a result of that, Muslim become backward. And what happened by 17th century, when Europeans attacked Muslim countries, they couldn't defend because they did not have the scientific advancement. And we start losing. And within 60 years, the entire Muslim world from Indonesia to Algeria was all under Europeans. And we lost it. It was Europeans, and I must say I'm thankful it was Europeans who reintroduced science to the Muslim world. But when they reintroduced, you think Muslim accepted? No. I will give you one example. Mostly you're from India subcontinent. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He was the first scholar who said Muslims should learn English and science. Now, did he have an easy task? You know what happened? People said he's kafir. They went to Saudi Arabia to get a fatwa that he's apostate and he should be killed. But he was persistent. And because of Aligarh University, I would say subcontinent Muslims become introduced to the subject of the science. So, what is the current condition? The Muslim nations now are educationally backward, behind in industrial and scientific development. Although after 100, 200, 150 years of colonialism, a lot of countries become independent. Pakistan, Egypt, Iran, all of them become independent. But in educationally, where are they? Comparing to any European. Now, China became independent 2 years after Pakistan. Where is China now? South Korea gained independence, I think in 53, 54, still having war. And where they are in industrial development. Even Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, are they doing better than Muslim countries? Why? Because they adopted immediate change by the scientific development. We did not. I think this is what something I want to share with you to think about it. Now, let me deviate the subject for a few minutes. In last 150 years, what is happening in this world? Electricity is not just removing the darkness, but it become a necessity in today. We cannot live without electricity for a single day. Your air conditioner, your vacuum cleaner, your washer dryer, your fridge, everything. The big industries are running on electricity, and how much they are producing. Now, transportation in last 200 years, we started from bicycle to automobile to the trains to the big ships to the planes. Now we are conquering the space. Look at the mass communication. It's not only telephone, but now you have iPhone, you have WhatsApp. Just look at WhatsApp. You can call free of charge anywhere in the world, anytime, and then with the streamlining, if somebody is getting wedding in Bangalore, you can see it right from here, everything, as if you're there. That's the advancement. Look at the diseases. Now, malaria, tuberculosis, polio, small, completely wiped out from them. Look at how much complicated operations we're doing, saving lives. X-rays, how much advances you make in the diagnosis. Every complicated disease now, from simple X-rays to MRI, and even PET scans and all that, discovering complicated diseases. We have never been able to do that. Even diabetes and heart disease, which is the most common illnesses, people used to die. Now, people can live up to 100 years if they follow the doctor's order and the diet and exercise. If you don't, you will not live, I can tell you. But if you do follow the diet and exercise, that disease will not kill you. We have so many good advances we made. Just look at in simple things like hearing aid. I mean, I use it, otherwise I cannot hear anything. Eyeglasses. So all these inventions, GPS, how much life is making. Now, artificial intelligence, I think that's coming tomorrow. One simple question. Who has discovered all these things? Can you say me a single Muslim name who did that? If not, why not? That's what I want to think about. That's my challenge. That why in last 200 years, we missed everything. But do we not have brain? Yes, we did. Our ancestors didn't do a better job? They did much harder work than the current scientists because they were the pioneers. So, what is the current condition of the Muslims? There are 1.8 billion Muslims. That is 25% of the population. How many scientists we have? Only 1%. Population 25%, scientists 1%. We have 6% of publication and population is 25%. Why? Because we spend GDP only 0.5%, whereas the Western countries spend 10%. Our literacy rate is 40%, Western countries 90%. Why? All these things I'm sharing with you to think about it so that you become more conscious about it, that where we are, why we lost it. Then how many Nobel laureates in science we have? 3. Salam in physics, Zuhail in chemistry, and Sankar. Sankar is Turkish. He did his work in UTD, part of his work. He got Nobel Prize. Jewish population is what? 25 million or something or less. 195 Nobel laureates. Why are they have so many? Why not we? Because we lost it. We lost 500 years. So, what happened was the great Muslim scholars were product of the educational and cultural environment in 11th century. They were inspired by the Quran to explore the universe and conduct research, which led to great discoveries using deductive methodology and inductive, which means experiment and then results, not just theorizing. They saw everything, the Muslims in 11th century saw everything in the universe as more than just the admiration. Oh, that's great. No, they said, investigate it, find out why it is great. Even whether it is the human body or it is volcano or it is stars. They had that curiosity. And they said the research and discovery become a need religiously because the God is asking you to do that. That was the spirit there. We did not have that spirit. The great scientist in 11th century said there was no dichotomy between religion and knowledge. Their motivation was to utilize natural forces for the benefit of humankind. That's what Westerners. Everything I mentioned in the last 100 years, is it not benefiting you? Is it not making your life easy? Just look at the GPS. About 25, 30 years ago, to go to Chicago, I had to have a big map marking. I don't have to do anything. Just put a button and they will take me. And even they bring me the Cypress Meadows here. I didn't even think about it, how to do it. So, what shall we do? I think I mentioned the great scientists. And so, two things I learned. If 1,000 years ago, my ancestors can do it, I can do it. And that's the message we are trying to give to the young people. That's what Basheer mentioned, that we establish, and he's on the board of Institute of Medieval, Post-Medieval Studies, how to motivate the young Muslims to become future scientists. I know you're all scientists, but I think it happened that you got into the university and by chance you come here and you got a chance. But I think we have to spread that word all over the Muslim world so that the environment has to be changed, that science is not against religion. They still, Muslim think that science is not part of Islam. That concept has to be changed. So what the book gives you is the details of what I just mentioned. I just mentioned 15, 20 minutes, but it gives you pages and pages about exactly what happened in the 12th century, what philosophers, why philosophy was banned and all that. Then there were several chapters written in the book by various scientists here. Professor Nazir Ahmad, I think he's from Madras or Bangalore, I'm not sure. Bangalore. He has a good chapter that summarizing the entire book, and he talked about how we should change it in the future. We have Faizan, he's from Bangalore also? Bihar. Oh. Faizan and his brother has written this chapter, and he started a institute called Discovery STEM, and he is training high school children how to think out of box, how to have innovative ideas. And I understand their students have already filed for patent for several new discoveries. Aziz Badrian wrote an article on how to motivate children by giving them a task. We have asked them to write an essay with prizes first, second, third about the past scholars, and surprisingly, I just give them the names: Ibn Haytham, Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, and they wrote wonderful articles. And they said that each time we look into Google, search them, it gives them the feeling, I think I want to become a scientist. Then next year we gave another task about giving 20 names of the current scientists, including the Nobel laureates, and several researchers in Harvard, Stanford, and Princeton, Columbia. And they wrote the article on their work, and they said that stimulated us, just motivate us to do something. So we are trying to do by that exhibits I mentioned to you, we are doing that. And then Professor Hudbhai, I don't know how many are familiar, but he was here and as a speaker in our conference, and he wrote about the practical guide to science. Then Bashu has written an article about the basic research, what that means, how islet transplant means and how it helps and how you think about it and the whole procedure. So we have great articles on that. And I think already I mentioned to you about discovery system. So what is the take-home message? I won't take 2 minutes to finish this. Muslim world was the epicenter of innovation throughout the golden age, 8 to 1500. Modern Muslim world has made very little progress. You know, Spain and India has produced more scientific papers than the entire Muslim world. Just two countries. Absence of scientific temper is the major factor for the decline. Islam does need to renew those scientific and philosophical vigor to bring about the Islamic Renaissance. The two things I want to mention here is that Quran says God will not change our condition unless we first act to change ourselves. So only by asking God, please change it, it will not happen. You have a responsibility to do it yourself. Then pray to God, I'm attempting, I'm doing, help God. But not just asking God to do it for you. God says, no, it was very clearly mentioned in the Quran. So we need to have a system of education where science must be taught together with morals and ethics. Unfortunately, in the Western countries, you don't see people teach ethics and morals. They make good scientists, but sometimes they use science for destructive purposes. But if you introduce Islamic ethics and morals, so you're combining that to give them a great sense of education. Okay, so 2 or 3 things I need to just mention to you. Unfortunately, what happened, what I'm seeing in last 20, 30 years, going to every mosque, we talk a lot about dunya and akhirat. But our focus is on akhirat. You heard all the time, this life is very short, but you have to prepare yourself for the life. But you know, in the Quran, dunya and akhirat were mentioned 150 times each. And how many times you read dua, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasnatum wa fil akhirati hasnatum? Maybe 16 to 20 times every day with each prayers. And it talks about dunya hasanatum and akhirat. So God did not say, give up dunya. You don't have to. You have equal responsibility in dunya. Second thing, like to mention is, there is a word, takaffur. What is that? Fikr. Several times, if you study Quran in depth, you see the word takaffur. What is takaffur means? Takaffur is come with fikr, and fikr come with thinking, with develop innovative thoughts, critical thinking. Muslims lost that. In India, Pakistan, there are million children getting education in madrasas. And what they are educating is memorize, regurgitate. and they don't teach original thinking. But Quran says, no, God has given you aql to use it for benefit of human. Amalus Salihat. Amalus Salihat was given more times than Uqimit Salat wa Atu Zakat. Zakat and Salat was given many times, but Amal Salihat was given more times in the Quran than Salat. What is Amal Salihat? Amal Salihat is not just your behavior of righteousness, but also how much you are benefiting the humanity around you. So I want to just conclude here with the messages. To think about it, what I said, and see if you have responsibility not only to train children in this country, but all over the world. And what unfortunately is happening is, you're all seeing in Pakistan, it was built for the Muslim, for a showcase to the world what the Muslims, is it the, are we doing that? It is so sad. And I think Maulana Azad was quite correct. I can see his prediction that this country will not survive because the motivation, the principle with Jinnah and maybe they did not follow any of it. So we are getting the bad name. A month ago, 60 people were killed in the masjid. Is that Islam? 2 days ago, 11th February, they got a person in the police station, burned him to death because the charges of blood. That's what they are showing. But any scientific progress? None. Any progress towards humanity? None. So I think the Muslim world has to change. And the only thing that changes by education, by following Quranic guidance. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's reclaim the thing. Assalamu alaikum. That was a very enlightening speech by Dr. Basheer Ahmad, and I hope you all enjoyed it. We have a question and answer session now, which will be moderated by Dr. Basheer. And before that, I just wanted to apologize for the technical difficulties we had. You probably missed about first 5 minutes of our meeting because the mic was not on. I apologize, that was my personal mishap. And in a nutshell, the message is that this is the first of many monthly idea talk that we are proposing to have. And inshallah, every month we'll come up with a new topic that will make us think and act for the benefit of ourselves and our humanity. Inshallah, now I'll hand over the mic, the screen to Brother Basheer, and you can ask your questions and we'll continue from there. And also one more thing before we close, we have our IDEA annual banquet and fundraising on 18th March. Please do join us. We have a fantastic program lined up for you, and we will share some more of our programs during that. Thank you.
Yeah, question, you can post on YouTube.
Okay, if you have any questions, you can also post in the YouTube chat, and also whoever's on, I don't think there's many in our Zoom call, but you can post it on YouTube chat. And we have an audience here who will be, participating, asking questions, inshallah.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Basheer Ahmad. As I mentioned in my introduction, in my career, he is one of the remarkable persons that I have met. See, even though he has had a successful career, he retired as a professor of psychiatry, but in the last 25 years, he has done so many humanitarian services to the DFW community, which many of you may not know, but go ahead, and he has written at least 6 or 7 books. Today's talk is about a book that he has released recently called The Rise and Fall of Muslim Civilization. It's right here. If anybody wants to buy, you are welcome to buy the book, number one. Number two, he also mentioned that actually he has created a scientific exhibit. All the scientists that he has mentioned, he has gone to Hyderabad Nizam, a new museum and all places to collect the authentic photographs and details about the scientists. And that's in the book. That's also in the form of an exhibit. It was placed in UT Dallas, had great reception. Many students who did not know about Islam, they asked a lot of questions. That exhibit will be in a GEM center in the near future. I think in the end of January and February, it will be in the GEM Cultural Center. It's in front of the IACC Masjid. If anybody wants to know, this is next to the Crystal Bank. If you have children who are in high school, they want to learn about Islamic civilization, that is there. So inshallah, you're welcome to go visit that and learn about this thing. So with that small, again, he really not only talked about the past, he has also given you the food for thought, like, you know, what we can do. In order to just say what he has told today, I mean, his contribution, I just want to say one thing in Tamil, that is, Yam Petra Invattai Peruga Ivvayagam. He already learned for 30 years, whatever he learned. And now he's trying to disseminate to the other Muslim people. So that is very important. We all are here. We are now concerned about children, the education, STEM, everything. But we need to know the history so that we don't do the same mistake that we did before. He mentioned that in the Islamic civilization, after 14th century, we forgot science. So it's important to understand that scientists, I am a scientist myself. You know, Alhamdulillah, I've been able to make so much difference among the Muslims also, and also other things. So it's a very interesting thing. And that's what he's trying to do. Create an awareness for scientists, science, all STEM, science, technology, math, everything. So along with the fiqh knowledge, do the science education also. So that is the message. Now I'll take some questions here. I will have a first question from Brother Abdul Kalam.
Salim, it's an amazing job what you guys do. You guys are amazing guys. I see always, you know, we are going back differently. There's no doubt we need to learn from the past. That's what we are seeing it. I'm just, as a suggestion maybe, right? Why don't we have a lot of scientists in the Muslim community? Why not conduct something, explain about what they are doing? You know, our kids always wants an example where they can see it. Unfortunately, if we say even a height, there's nothing wrong. They can see it, but they don't have any current scientists. Is this something you can do it?
Actually, that's not what we said. Who are talking about the past, what about the present? How many Muslim scientists are doing currently?
Because our kids needs to know.
I can also add to his.
Sure.
Two things I need to mention. Since the colonialists reintroduced, Muslims realized that how much we did in the past, I think we need to do that. But there was a big resistance in Muslims still towards teaching science, because I think the old ideas that science will take you away from religion still exists, number one. Second thing, unfortunately, our main teaching, Islamic teaching, is your life is very short here, which is correct. You have to prepare for the life after death, which is eternal. The words are correct, but God did not say that you give up this life. That's the reason I mentioned there were 19 verses talking about explore God's creation. We did not invent the heavens and earth and in between for nothing. It's saying that there is a reason for that. I told you one verse I mentioned that we talk about the transportation mules and ices, but more to come, that given you the responsibility, and then God said, you have to do it. So it is, but that's not what we are teaching. That's the reason we lost it. Now, although I give you the name of 3 Muslim nobles, but you know, they did the basic learning back home. But actually the research was here. Okay. The great scientists I mentioned here, they are learning and doing work in this country, not back home. That's the problem. So I have given at least, I have given 20 names to our students to find about their work. They were great mathematicians, physicists. In fact, we invited last year in May a great astrophysicist, Baghdad, who is from Turkey, and she has discovered a new pulsating star, and they have given her name to that star. So we are doing, but she is here. In fact, she has a very interesting, another lady from Lucknow, Hassan. She is in with the NASA Hubble Telescope research, and she gave a very interesting story. We invited her 3 years ago. She said when she was finishing his high school, her parents said, "I think you should get married," and she said, "No, I want to understand what is space," because she said when she was in high school, maybe middle school, she saw the Sputnik, so that created her interest. And she went to Oxford and became astrophysicist. She worked with NASA. So, and same thing with Baghdad in Turkish. She was from a small village. They said, "Go and get married." Her children, "No, I want to study." And somehow she fight with the family. She come here and she become. So these scientists have to struggle back home to become scientists, but they only realize their potential in this country. What I am saying is, I think Muslim countries have to change. Unfortunately, just I am not criticizing too much our Islamic Center. I think they are doing great job of training our children, at least keeping them Muslim, but their focus is all afterlife. I think we need to have equal focus in this life. You should do to serve humanity. Science is serving humanity. That is not against God's wish. So that's
Just to simplify the answer, Dr. Asab has opened an institute called Institute of Medieval and Post-Medieval Sciences, where he encourages current scientists, whether astronomy or medicine. We have annual lectures at UTD, and then inshallah we'll have even more. And he also encourages students to write essays about any Muslim scientist currently. Let them, because there are so many fields, there are so many people who have contributed. They can write. For example, there is our president of India, Abdul Kalam. He was a great in rocket science. Something. So the students are welcome to write about the current Muslim contribution to the science. So he does that through the institute. Next question.
So,
Yeah, my first comment is that I wanted to thank Dr. Basheer Ahmad for giving a wonderful lecture, wonderful speech. And this is something that is very unique, actually. Whatever you covered so far, it's a lot of historical facts, not just, telling something, right? You have actually narrated so many facts, actually, with the dates and the statistics and all that, right? So, which is something very unique. And this is one of the best speeches I ever heard in our community so far. In the last so many years we have been living, mainly because it is more scientific, especially the two areas you covered, like physics and astronomy. Since I have experience in those fields, I really enjoyed, that you covered those fields, as well as medicine, chemistry, a lot of like surgery and all that. So for that, I really appreciate and thank. The other thing is that you really have to, we really have to encourage our students, our children. So we can do that. One thing we can do is to share the package that you have presented to children, especially for seniors in high school, as well as college students, the fresh college students, so that they know exactly, what the contributions made by the, scholars, Muslim scholars, Muslim scientists, several hundreds of years ago, right? So many people don't even know, actually. Even in our community, most people may not know, that a lot of stars were actually named after Islamic scholars, actually. The astronomers in the Muslim world, they were able to locate the stars, they were able to name the stars and catalog them, actually, hundreds of years ago. Astronomy is a very great field and very difficult field to learn, and several centuries ago, they were able to do this. That is very unique, actually. So these are the things that we need to tell the student, the children. We have to inculcate, and we have to encourage them. Most of the parents, over the past years, what I have come across is that students have the habit of just getting a good grade, just to get admission in medical school or engineering school. But we have to encourage them to understand, especially the basic science and mathematics, because without science and mathematics, there's no engineering actually. So this is something that we have to encourage the students, when they are actually growing up, high school and first few years of college. So that is something that every one of us have to have the responsibility to teach them and make them understand what the world is about actually, because without math and science, there is nothing actually. So that's something that every parent, every family has to understand. I mean, we are all busy and we have all jobs, but we have to bring up our community actually, right? So that's something that we can do. And also one more thing, our masjid also has to do proper work. They don't have any interest in teaching any science or math things actually. They teach religious courses, all those things. They also teach, let me tell you something. This is something that I observed over many years in the Dallas Fort Worth Masjid. They teach courses in IT because they produce revenue. They generate money for the masjid, but they completely ignore science and mathematics, which is really sad. Even if somebody wants to volunteer, they're not encouraged. No, nothing. So how the students will be able to understand science and mathematics? I mean, if we don't encourage our community, there is absolutely no encouragement from the community actually. So we have to do something about this.
Yeah.
We keep talking about it, but
Yeah, actually,
I think I totally agree with you.
yeah.
Only two comments I like to make, that I think many parents feel that the best use for science is to go to medical school, engineering college, because of the financial gains in it, not for the basic science. I'm saying that because they don't know anything else about it. They only know how it will benefit the family. So that's our job. And I think only one thing I need to mention is that Basheer is part of our group, and someday go with him and look at Discovery STEM and see the only thing they're teaching is how to look at something innovative, not for financial reason, but for curiosity and helping community.
Yes.
So he may arrange some time for all of you to go there.
yeah, I want to add something to what Brother Ghulam said here.
Yeah.
He's telling that, okay, where is the education encouragement from the masjid? That's a different topic, inshallah, we'll address. But I want to bring one thing. The gathering here is the idea. What they want to do is, we are here in this country, we are already, alhamdulillah, well, in my opinion, doing well. But how about the country where we came from, called Tamil Nadu? They want to help students who are very poor, who are smart, into pursuing education. They are also interested in pursuing science, technology, education, everything. So they are not only giving money to students to do IAS, IPS, they can include science also. If anybody has done a great job in biotechnology or, in chemistry, in physics, inshallah, we should add scholarships for that. So that way we can directly make a small impact. Inshallah, Allah will give more barakah, but we can make the thing. Next
We have another question from a youngster
Yeah.
here.
Anybody has any questions?
Thank you for the speech. It was very well taught. The words you said, I really need to ponder over, inshallah, over the next couple of days. So I really understand what has been said. But my question is, what can we do as youngsters to, in high school, to do for the world of science in Islamic manner?
The question is, what
can they do? What can the youth can
Yeah.
do?
I think the message you have to give twofold. First thing is, that God has created us first to live in this world and then prepare for Akhirah. Preparation for Akhirah does not mean simply prayers and fasting and Hajj. It is more than that. It is how you help community. Amalus Salihat. I think you have to study Amalus Salihat, what that means. Helping the family, helping the environment, helping. So even if you help in environmental change, that is part of the God's message. That's part of religion. So we have to integrate, this is important, integrate the scientific knowledge in our life. That's what I think the students can play a major role if you look into how to become scientists, how to develop innovative thinking. And if you can spread among the board, people will be motivated. They will develop for passion for that. So the students can do a lot. In fact, I suggest that you come once in a month to our meeting and see what we are suggesting and what role you can play. And I
Yeah,
think you can-
actually, I want to say one thing. The Institute
Yeah.
of Medieval, Post-Medieval Science Studies, called IMPMS, has scientific directors who are all from high school. There were two girls who graduated from a high school here, went to UT Austin. There is one girl who are part of Discover STEM. Actually, there is a 5-year-old Muslim girl who was awarded a patent this year. A 5-year-old Muslim girl. How
Wow.
many of you know that? It was all done by Mirza Faizan.
you should know that.
Muslim care. And there is a boy, he got like 5 patents. He's not even finishing high school.
Yeah.
5 patents, Muslim boy. They all went to, I think, they went to NASA, they won competition. Now there is a robotic attempt to going on. So a lot of awareness is coming up. So there are Muslims who can do a lot more things. Any last question or any comment?
Yes.
So I think in my view, we need to work on all the dimensions, right? So bringing up the current kids is good in a way, like with all these programs. But one thing I see is like the current people who are there. There is no organization, like there are a lot of organization who takes care of human needs and educations and whatever. But rarely I see any organization which is identifying the top talents and then give them a pathway. Say this is the way you can reach. So do we have any solutions to that?
There are 3 things we are doing. First thing is that we are encouraging the students to join one of our programs like robotics, which is in Plano. In fact, both Discovery System is in Plano, and they're training little children from 5-10-year-old to high school about innovative. That's the one thing. Second thing is we are trying to organize essay competition so they can see about what the Muslim scientists are doing here, so that they can develop the idea that Muslims are not giving up science. Muslims are making progress, although we said for 500 years, but we are making progress now. 2 things. And the third thing is inviting the great scholars, scientists to come to this town, and we, just like I mentioned, Pag will come, nearly 100 high school students come and talk to her how to become scientists. So that's one thing. We are doing the exhibit. That's another thing. So there's several projects. In fact, we just had a strategic meeting. He spent 6 hours on that how to achieve our goals. And in fact, next week we are meeting to start implementing some of the goals. So we are doing a lot of work and very hard to summarize, but yeah, I think Basheer, since he meet with you all the time, he can keep you up to date.
Yeah, just to add to what Doctor said, there is Brother Asaf. He is from Plano.
Yeah.
Guess what? The entire Abu Dhabi, the state country Abu Dhabi, he manages all their power grid. Entire. He's in charge of 3 nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
He's from Plano. He is a member of this Institute of Medieval Sciences board meeting. He came for the strategy. So we are trying to include very smart whoever wants to contribute. And then they can become a member of this IMPMS and then be in the brainstorming sessions. We can implement. So there are organizations, to answer your question, we need to look for it. They have been trying to help and then create awareness. Inshallah, we will do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I think, mashallah, great talk, Dr. Sir. I think from your take-home message was for us also to, create the scientific temper, but not just, I think you added in your presentation, you're focused on the financials. I think we should increase more of PhDs like Dr. Nazir and this one. That should be a takeaway as well. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that concludes our meeting, and inshallah we'll be back for more entertaining and enlightening topics in the future, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for joining. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.